Hello everyone. What is the difference between these two sentences? Number one, Ali posted pictures of himself, his brother, and his wife. And number two, Ali posted pictures of himself, his brother, and his wife. What is the difference? At first glance, the difference between the first and second example is just the comma that comes after his brother in the second example. But what difference does it make? Look at the first example. It says his wife. Whose wife is that? Ali's or his brother's? And who is his wife in the second example? Ali's or his brother's? Yes, that's the point of this video. To understand the differences, please watch the rest of the video. Chicago Manual of Style says items in a series are normally separated by commas. So when there is a series, let's say X, Y, Z, we separate them with commas. Then it adds, when a conjunction joins the last two elements in a series of three or more, a comma. Here we are talking about the last two parts of the sentence, his brother and his wife. So I'm reading that part again. When a conjunction joins the last two elements, his brother and his wife, in a series of three or more, a comma, known as the serial or series comma or the Oxford comma, should appear before the conjunction. That is, should appear before and, his brother and his wife. There should be a comma before and. For example, she posted the pictures of her parents, the president, and, comma, and the vice president. So there is a list consisting of three items, and we put comma before the last and. So X, comma, Y, comma, and Z. Example number 2. Paul put the kettle on. Don fetched the teapot, comma, and I made tea. A list including three items, and each item is separated by a comma. Now, why do we add that comma? Can we just not ignore it? Well, for that, let's consider the two examples we started this video with. Number 1, Ali posted pictures of himself, his brother, and his wife. Here, when we look at it, his wife mostly refers to his brother. So the wife there is Ali's brother's wife, not Ali's wife. But in the second example, we have Ali posted pictures of himself, comma, his brother, comma, and his wife. So here, the wife is Ali's wife, not his brother's wife. You see, that is the power of the serial or Oxford comma. When you add one comma, the meaning can change entirely. But let's make things a little bit more complicated. What if there is another example, and in that example, the last item itself already has an and? What should we do then? The Chicago Manual of Style says if the last element consists of a pair joined by and, it means that already there is an and. The pair should still be preceded by a serial comma and the first and. It means that if already the last item has an and, it doesn't matter. We should still add the comma and before the last item. I know it's a little bit confusing, but let's take a look at these examples. Now, in these examples, there are some difficult words, but we don't care about the meaning of those words. But don't be puzzled about the meaning of those words. Consider them X, Y, Z. Number 1. Their wartime rations included cabbage, turnips, and bread and butter. So as you can see, bread and butter already has an and to it, a natural and that appears there without we adding it there. The last item is this, bread and butter. This is the last item. It already has an and in it. But since they are together and they are not separate, and we are considering the whole thing as the last item, we should still put a comma and another and right here. So the comma that appears after turnips is what we have added. And the yellow and after it is what we have added, but the white and was already in the sentence. The white and is inside the last item. So the last item itself is bread and butter as one. Example number 2. Ahmad was configuring updates. Jean was installing new hardware. And Alan was running errands and furnishing food. What is the first part? Ahmad was configuring updates. X, comma. What is Y? Second part. Jean was installing new hardware. That is the second item, comma. What is the third item? Alan was running errands and furnishing food. So this whole thing is the last item, but it already has an and in it. So what happens is we need to add another and together with a comma before this last item. So after hardware, which is the end of item 2, in the beginning of item 3, we add comma, yellow and, we have added that yellow and then the last item. And that last item already has an and in it, and that's okay. So X, comma, Y, comma, and Z. So what we do is we use the Oxford comma, as we called it, or the serial comma, another name. We use it to avoid ambiguity. That is, we use it to avoid confusion. But sometimes, if we use that comma, there will still be confusion. In that case, it's better to reword, that is, rephrase or paraphrase the whole sentence. Let's see some examples. Number 1, I thanked my mother, Lady Gaga, and Madonna. But here, the sentence can be read as if Lady Gaga is my mother. The author says, I thanked my mother. Who's that mother? Lady Gaga. And Madonna. So in this example, it can be read that there are two characters, only two characters, Lady Gaga and Madonna. Who's Lady Gaga? My mother. The writer could be saying. So you see, there is confusion here. If you want to make it clear that there are three people here, my mother, Lady Gaga, and Madonna, we have to rephrase the sentence. So the rephrased sentence is like number 2. I thanked my mother and Lady Gaga and Madonna. Here we removed all commas and we added another and before the second item. So there are three characters, my mother, Lady Gaga, and Madonna. So in the second example, Lady Gaga is not the author's mother, and thus we avoid the confusion. Let's consider the case from another aspect. The Chicago Manual says, in a series where elements are all joined by conjunctions, and we already know that conjunctions are and, but, in other words, no commas are needed unless the elements are long and delimiters. Consider delimiters as conjunctions. Delimiters would be helpful. So if a sentence consists of 3 items, for example, and those items already have conjunctions with them, we don't need comma, except where those items are very long and it could be confusing not to use those commas. Let's see some examples. Number 1, would you prefer Mendelssohn or Schumann or Liszt? You see, there are 3 items and there are already 2 ors there. We don't need to add a comma there, it's clear. But look at the second example. It says, you can turn left at the second fountain and right when you reach the temple. This is the first item. You see, it's very long, and there is another long item, number 2, and another long item, number 3. And because they already have ands or other conjunctions with them, it could be confusing to the reader. So it's better to have commas here. So we put a comma after the first item. Then we say, or left at the third fountain and left again at the statue of Venus, comma, or in whatever direction Google sends you. So, fellas, you can see that adding commas can play a big difference, and it can avoid big misunderstandings, and it can avoid big confusions. it can play with the meaning to a large degree. To write as a professional, use commas wisely. Thanks for watching. There will be more videos on how to use comma.